You don't know who I am, do you? Emily's voice was calm, but her eyes burned with something dangerous. John wiped the grease from his hands, frowning. Should I? She hesitated, then let out a soft, almost bitter laugh. Maybe not, but after tonight you will. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a crisp business card, and slid it across the workbench. The name on it made his stomach drop. Everything about this night. The broken-down SUV, the woman who didn't belong here, the quiet way she watched him, suddenly felt like something much bigger, something he wasn't ready for. The wind howled through Willow Creek, rattling the loose shingles of Cole's auto repair. John Cole, a wiry man in his early 30s with grease-stained hands and a jaw set like steel, stood under the flickering fluorescent lights of his garage. The air smelled of motor oil and pine, a scent that clung to him like a second skin. His father's old radio crooned a mournful tune, a ghost of the man who built this place with sweat and stubborn pride. Now it was John's burden, a sinking ship of unpaid bills and fading hope. The bank's foreclosure notice sat crumpled on the workbench, a death sentence he couldn't outrun. He was flipping the closed sign when headlights slashed through the dusk. A silver SUV lurched into the lot, its engine hacking like a chain smoker's cough. John cursed under his breath, tempted to walk away, but the driver stepped out, a woman in a sharp blazer, auburn hair pulled taut, her green eyes flashing with frustration. She didn't belong here, not in this nowhere town. Still open? She asked, her voice crisp but fraying at the edges. John sized her up, then nodded. For a car that sounds like it's begging for mercy, yeah. She introduced herself as Emily, no last name, and said she was late for a meeting 2 towns over, one she'd clearly miss. John popped the hood and grimaced. Worn belts, a parched oil pan, a radiator on its last legs. This thing's been ignored longer than my mailbox, he said, half joking. Fix it tonight? She pressed, arms crossed. Could, he replied, meeting her gaze. Will, give me 2 hours. She perched on a stool, watching as he worked. His hands moved with quiet precision, guided by his father's unshakable code. Do it right. Charge what's fair. Don't cheat a soul. The silence between them was thick, but oddly companionable. When he finished, the SUV hummed like a dream. He handed her the keys and a bill, $1.20, dirt cheap for the late-night hustle. Emily pulled out a fat roll of cash. Take more. You earned it. Nope, he said, firm as stone. That's the price. She stared at him, her expression unreadable, then paid and drove off. John pocketed a rusted bolt he'd replaced, a keepsake he didn't know would haunt him. He locked up, unaware that his life had just swerved off its quiet track. Emily Dawson wasn't just a stranded stranger. She was the billionaire CEO of Dawson Tech, a powerhouse in electric vehicles, a throne she'd inherited from her father, William Dawson. But the crown was heavy. Corporate sharks circled her, their smiles dripping with deceit. For months, she'd been driving that beat-up SUV in disguise, a secret test of the world's goodness. She'd met liars, cheats, and opportunists, until John. His stubborn honesty had lit a spark in her jaded heart. The next morning, John's phone buzzed. A polished voice. Claire, Emily's assistant, cut through the static. Mr. Cole, Ms. Dawson requests your presence at Dawson Tech headquarters tomorrow. 10 a.m. Bring your tools. Dawson Tech. John's mind raced. The name was a monolith, a world of wealth and innovation he'd never touched. His garage was drowning. 2 mortgage payments from oblivion. Suspicion prickled, but desperation won. I'll be there. The headquarters loomed like a sci-fi fortress, all glass and chrome. Emily greeted him in a tailored suit, her demeanor cool but electric. I owe you the truth, she said, ushering him into a conference room with a panoramic view of the city. That SUV wasn't a fluke. I've been looking for someone real, someone who doesn't bend. That's you. She offered him a job, a bridge between gritty mechanics and her futuristic EVs. No degree, no fancy titles, she said, but you've got a gift. I need it. John's gut churned. Why me? You don't know me. I know you didn't fleece me, she shot back. That's more than I can say for most. Say yes, John. He did. though doubt gnawed at him like rust on metal. The garage could wait, but could he trust her? His first week at Dawson Tech was a gauntlet. Chief Engineer Richard Hale, a lean man with a venomous smirk, greeted him with mockery. "A grease monkey in a clean room," he sneered, loud enough for the team to snicker. Whispers trailed John, unqualified, outsider, fluke. He buried himself in schematics, proving he could keep pace with the PhDs. Then came the first twist. Reviewing a motor prototype, John spotted a flaw. A rotor misaligned by a hair, a ticking bomb under stress. "This'll fry," he warned, pointing it out in a meeting. Richard laughed, but Emily ordered a test. The motor seized in minutes, spitting sparks and smoke. The room went dead quiet. Emily's eyes gleamed. "Told you he's worth it." Richard's pride took a hit, and he didn't hide it. Days later, an article exploded online. Dawson Tech's mystery mechanic. Favoritism or affair? It painted John as Emily's lapdog, hinting at scandal. His confidence buckled. Had she orchestrated this? Used him as bait? He stormed her office, the city skyline blazing behind her. "Did you plant that story? Am I just a pawn?" Her face darkened. "No, Richard did. I've got his emails to the press. He's out 5 hours ago." John's anger cooled, but suspicion lingered. "How do I know you're not playing me too?" She stepped closer, her voice low and fierce. "Because I'm staking my company on you." "Stay, John. We're not done." He stayed, but the thread of trust between them was frayed. Months rolled by, and John carved a place for himself. He led the practical application team, turning blueprints into machines that hummed with life. Emily relied on him, their late-night talks shifting from torque to trust. One evening, on the rooftop with shared whiskey, she cracked open her past. "My father built Dawson Tech," she said, staring at the stars. "But he broke me. Nothing was ever enough." John pulled the rusted bowl from his pocket, handing it to her. "You're enough. You're building something better." Their eyes locked, the air charged. Days later, an elevator malfunction trapped the mid-floor, the dim light casting shadows. She kissed him, hesitant and hungry, and he kissed her back. Allies became lovers, a shift sealed in quiet heat. But peace was fleeting. A new shadow emerged. Claire, Emily's assistant, had been leaking designs to a rival firm, Apex Motors. Jealous of John's rise, she'd turned traitor. Emily uncovered it when a prototype file went missing, traced back to Claire's encrypted emails. Confronted, Claire fled, leaving a note on Emily's desk. "You'll regret trusting him. He's not what he seems." Suspicion flared. Was Claire pointing at John or someone else? Before answers came, sabotage struck. During a late-night test, a prototype motor exploded, shrapnel slicing through the lab. John dove for cover, a jagged shard grazing his arm. Blood stained his sleeve, but he was alive. Emily rushed in, her face pale. "Who did this?" "I don't know," he rasped, clutching his arm. "But they're not done." The investigation deepened. Emily tightened security, hiring a private firm to hunt Claire. John's wound healed, but his mind churned. Claire's note gnawed at him. He's not what he seems. Was she framing him? Or had someone else wormed into Dawson Tech? A new player emerged. Marcus Tate, a slick Apex Motors exec who'd been circling Emily for months, offering a merger she'd rebuffed. His charm masked the predator's edge. John caught him lingering at a trade show, eyeing Emily with a hunger that set his teeth on edge. "Watch him," John warned her. "He's too interested." Emily nodded, but the stakes climbed. A second sabotage hit. A tampered battery pack sparked a fire in the lab, nearly torching $1 million project. Evidence pointed to an inside job, and whispers pinned it on John. Richard, though fired, resurfaced in rumors, claiming John was a plan to destabilize Dawson Tech. Emily stood by him, but John's trust wavered. "What if they're right?" he asked her one night, the bolt pendant now around her neck. "What if I'm bad luck?" "You're not," she said, gripping his hand. "You're my anchor." The truth unraveled in a sting. Emily's PI tracked Claire to a seedy motel, where she spilled under pressure, Richard and Marcus had orchestrated the sabotage, using her as a pawn. Richard wanted revenge. Marcus wanted Dawson Tech secrets. The explosion and fire were their work, meant to break Emily's faith in John and force a merger. But Claire dropped a bomb. There's more. Check John's past. He's hiding something. Emily confronted him in the garage. The old one, where it all began. What's she talking about? John's face tightened. I didn't want you to know. My dad, he didn't just die. He was in debt to some rough people, loan sharks. I paid it off, but they still watch me. I didn't tell you because I didn't want them near you. Her eyes softened. You should have trusted me. I do now, he said, voice raw. A year later, they stood at the launch of Cole Dawson Innovations, a fusion of their worlds. Richard and Marcus were arrested, their plot exposed in a public takedown. Claire turned state's evidence, vanishing into witness protection. The launch unveiled a revolutionary motor, John's design, Emily's vision, powering a new era under a starlit sky. John gave Emily the polished bolt pendant, now engraved. To us. This fixed more than a car, he said. It fixed me. She slipped it on, tears glinting. And me, to a future we fight for. They kiss, the night folding around them. The garage stood strong, a relic of their start, but their legacy soared. A love forged in fire, trust, and a single honest act that mended everything.